Hello, and welcome to another 5 o'clock somewhere episode of We Only Look Thin. I am your 36 hours sober co-host, Catherine Weigel. I had a drink the other night.
This is shocking revelation on a podcast.
I had a beverage. Hi, I'm Catherine Weigel, and I am sipping refreshing water. And this is my refreshing husband,
Donald Weigel. Much more than 36 hours sober.
Must be nice.
I don't know. Labor Day, I think.
Oh, that's very interesting.
Labor Day weekend.
We'll let everybody know. We'll post it on social media. Hello and welcome.
Hi.
We're sober.
Hey, why are we here? We are doing a podcast. It's called We Only Look Thin, and I've lost a little over 100 pounds, and I'm here to tell you about it.
He is, and I've lost about 110 pounds. We'll fix it in post. No, I've lost about 147 pounds.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about drinking.
I love how, like, when I try to be accurate about something and you're like, it's about 10, and I'll say it was 11. You get really mad at me, but then, like, you have to say 147. You can't just say 150.
I feel like
or 145
people are
even.
counting on the accuracy of pounds. Like, to be like, I lost about... Like, I just want to be transparent, because in early episodes, I was very, like, I'd lost about 154 pounds, and I was like, I've lost 153 pounds, 0.9, if you, like, I just want to be transparent. I'm up a little bit working on it. So we're going to work on talking today about alcohol.
Yes, this is a difficult subject for a number of people. A difficult subject for a lot of reasons, but in relationship to weight loss, not wanting to give up your party time.
Yeah, your you time, your O'Doul's time. Oh wait, no, that's
O'Doul's time.
I remember. Well, we'll talk about O'Doul's and Donald's hatred of it a little bit later in the show.
But early in the show, we have a tip of the week.
Tao!
We're going to round it out with a product of the week.
Pow! We
everyone.
Actually had the cutest video the other day.
Yeah, it was pretty great.
Of a young fan of the show who, his mom sent us a video. Alexis sent us a video of a little kid saying, "Tell everybody." It was the sweetest thing I've ever seen.
Walt Super Chum Alexis and her Super Chum son.
Baby.
Baby.
So we'll start with...
saying, "Tao, tip of the week to you."
But it was much cuter.
Yeah, much cuter than me.
I don't know. Should
it's
we
not
play
hard
it
to get
loud
much cuter
or
than
play it live? I don't know if it'll...
Not right now.
No? Okay.
No.
Donald says no. Sorry, Alexis.
The audio quality will be terrible.
The little kid is probably like, he was going to say my thing, and now he's
and
not.
it'll take you 20 minutes to find it.
Why is that mean man doesn't want to hear me on the podcast?
Fine.
Anyway, so we have
I'll tell you what. If I can, I will, I'll do it in post.
Okay,
I'll
there
get
we
the
go.
audio in post, and I'll put it in.
Okay.
And I'll put it in right here.
Tip of the week to ya. Tip of the week to ya.
That was delightful. Isn't that the sweetest thing you've ever heard?
Exactly.
So we have a Super Chum episode of Taos and Pals today, don't we, Donald?
We sure do. We've got a Tao inspired by a Walt Super Chum and a Pow inspired by... actually, they
did it. We're phoning it in. This is basically...
We're letting you, the listener, do the heavy lifting this week.
So do you want to start out with the Tao?
Tao, everybody!
Everybody!
So, Super Chum Elaine wrote us an email, which we love getting, and we do reply to. Elaine says, "Hello, Donald and Catherine." Hey, that's us.
She's from Canada. They say hello in Canada, by the way.
Oh, they do?
That's what they do in
They say hello in
Canada? They say hello.
They're just like you and me.
They're just like you and me. They're not so different.
Just like you and me.
Not so different.
I have an idea for a tip of the week. Tip of the week to you.
Tip of the week to you.
That might really be helpful for your listeners. Every day at bedtime, when I head into the bathroom to brush my teeth and do my evening routine, I turn on a Walt podcast.
Must be nice.
Wow. That's a really great idea.
Elaine is a real person. We didn't come up with this ourselves.
No, we didn't make this up. I have listened to them all many times, but I find that listening to the podcast before bed gets me thinking about how I can shape my day tomorrow with what advice ideas were in that episode. After a while, I tend to forget advice or tips from last year, so this refreshing of ideas... Yeah, we forget what we've talked about on the show, too. So this refreshing of ideas has been really helpful for me. So glad that Walt is taking off so successfully. Heart, Super Chum Elaine.
Super Chum Elaine.
I
She
inserted the Super Chum part.
P.S. You two are very good looking, she says. Says
Yeah.
Elaine.
Elaine said that.
I don't know.
Because she can see us on the podcast.
Yeah, no, but she's in Walt Place, W-O-L-T.
Walt Place, yes.
Yeah, but thank you, Elaine.
That is our online support group, by the way.
It is. But that is a great idea. Sometimes we worry about repeating ourselves. We do it.
Yeah.
But we worry about it also
Yeah.
at the same
Yeah.
time. They can happen at the same time.
Yeah, and sometimes I forget a couple of things. One is that not everyone has listened to every episode.
It's wrong.
And
it's not okay.
Yeah, I don't know why you wouldn't listen to every episode, but if you haven't,
Get it done like Chopin.
yeah, Chopin would have listened to every episode many times by now. But also, like, if you haven't been reminded of something in a while, it is easy to forget and easy to stray off of. And then sometimes, you hear it again, you're like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. I should really do that again.
Well, and I listened to the Gretchen Rubin podcast, Happier, and she gives each week she gives tips of things to do. And
tip of the week
tip
to
of
you,
the, she doesn't
Gretchen
say
Rubin
tip
says.
of the week, friend of the show. But you hear the episode and then you go like, oh, that's a great idea. I'll totally do that. And then I'll listen to the episode again a week later and be like, I totally forgot everything she said. So
Yeah.
go back, be like Elaine, Super Chum, and go back and listen to WOLT.
Well, and I know Elaine didn't exactly say this implicitly, but I think also it's a good idea to maybe, right before bed when you're thinking about what you're going to do the next day, thinking about what you want to do, how you really want your next day to go, setting intentions and resetting from the day that you just had, listening to a show, ours or a show like ours or an audio book or some sort of, motivational YouTube video or even, reading right before bed, reading something that's going to get you on track for the next day, I think is a great idea to be thinking about it at bedtime so that you wake up the next day with those thoughts in your head or maybe even dream about them.
Oh.
Yeah, how about that?
I think that's a great idea. I'm glad she said it implicitly and not explicitly.
Whoa.
Beep.
Yeah, we would get in trouble.
Elaine.
This is a family show, Elaine.
We don't want Alexis's little son to hear you say something explicit, so I'm glad
Exactly.
it was implicit. So, anyway.
Me too.
So that is the tip of the week.
Ciao,
Everybody.
Tip of the week to you.
Tip of the week to you, darling.
Oh, thank you.
Aw, thanks.
I appreciate that.
So now we're going to crack open a cold one. And by cold, and we're going to, actually, I'm just drinking water out of my Contigo water bottle. See, listen.
I know it's 5:00 somewhere, but it's about 8:30 in the morning here as we do this.
Little hair of the dog. I'm drinking
Whoa.
water.
Hair of the dog, hair of the water.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just drinking water because it's hot. It's hot. So yeah, we're going to talk about alcohol and its and how it can be great and bad.
Yeah, and look, before we really dive into it, I just want to say, if you have a real alcohol problem, this show is about people who drink moderately but are trying to either work alcohol into their diet plan. This is about calories and getting fit. If you have an actual alcohol problem, please go seek actual professional help. This is not the podcast for that.
No.
We are talking about health and fitness and weight loss as it relates to alcohol. And if you are somebody who is on your fitness journey and is going to get triggered by lots of talk about drinks, this may be the episode to skip, or skip ahead to the product of the week at the end of the show. And but please continue to download it so we get credit for it.
Yeah. No, and we take the issue seriously. I think I had more of an issue with alcohol kind of actually right before I started losing weight. So we're going to talk about our experiences with identifying as people who enjoyed alcohol and made it a part of their lives and didn't understand why they were overweight. But we're going to give you some tips on how to manage it. But like Donald said, if you do feel like you have a serious issue, please talk to a counselor or get some professional help because we actually have a neighbor. Most of our our Sunday recordings happen early because we have a neighbor who actually hosts an AA meeting, and they make lots
you
of
may have
chanting
heard them
noises,
singing "Happy Birthday" and other things in the background as we record from time to time.
Yeah, so he has about 20, 30 guys over every Sunday, so it is a constant reminder that it is an issue. So we're talking about it. Fun times.
Let's lighten it back up. Boobazella sound. Woo.
So where do you want to start out with talking about your experience with alcohol?
Yeah, I don't really have an alcohol problem as it relates
That's
to
what
alcohol
they
problems,
say.
but I definitely, had one in terms of my weight. And I spent most of my 20s, most of my early 20s, I really didn't even drink. And then
he met me.
Yeah, right around age 24, I started, and I was mostly kind of a beer guy, didn't care for much else. And then somewhere around my mid-30s, I don't know why tastes change, but I suddenly felt like I discovered, in air quotes, wine and champagne. And
well, I think you worked on a movie up in Napa.
Oh yeah,
and,
that
remember?
might have been what got me
So
going.
he actually lived in Napa for a few months.
It was like 2 months. I was up in Napa that I was being paid to be up there, and like part of my job was actually to go to wineries and take photos so that we could set up some establishing shots and stuff, and I could send them back to Los Angeles. And so a lot of the times I had to pay for tastings on the company when I went up there.
Must be nice.
Yeah,
and
no, it's pretty
establishing
great.
shots means video footage of a winery, not actually like Jack Daniel's shots.
Yeah.
Just letting you know for people not in the biz. But
Exactly.
we went up. I went up to visit you when we went wine tasting, and it kind of became a thing, and we started kind of seeing ourselves as wine people.
Yeah, and I really felt like I was coming into my own as somebody who really enjoyed fine wine and was into, craft beer and, getting into like really, high end gin and vodka and things. And I also weighed a little over 100 pounds more than I do right now. And, we belonged to 3 wine clubs up in Napa. And then I got a diabetes diagnosis.
Well, and beyond that, we were footloose and fancy free as you are before you have kids.
Yeah.
And then we became parents in sort of a non-traditional way. And so we actually...
Yeah, our daughter was 8 when we got her.
Yeah. So before she came to live with us, we actually went to Napa for the weekend, and we're like, we're not going to join any wine clubs. And then we did.
Yeah.
We joined 3 wine clubs.
Well, we were members of 2 and we added 1.
Yeah. But so we identified as people who enjoyed a lovely beverage, a frosty cocktail. Donald enjoys the football, so there's like football Sunday beer. You know how drinking goes. Everybody, we're grown-ups.
Yeah,
That's what
and
happens.
here on the West Coast, football games start at 10 a.m., so you can legally start drinking beer at 10 a.m.
Exactly. But sort of at the same time, before Donald received the diabetes diagnosis, parenting was not something we were expecting, and it was very difficult for me. Donald worked a lot, and we did not have a super easy go of it at first. It was a big emotional challenge for me.
It's super easy going now, though.
Yeah, no, super easy. But I tried to act like everything was normal, and this is kind of where my alcohol overconsumption started. Was I didn't take any time off when we became parents. I tried to act like everything at work was normal. I tried to act like parenting was normal. And I used food and alcohol as sort of my end of day reward for all of the hard work that I was doing. We had a lot of switch ups at work. I was doing the job of 3 people literally, and took on another giant project at work, and was doing parenting, and was getting calls from the principal. And
yeah,
I used alcohol. I started actually drinking like every day. I would just have like, mommy juice, you got to unwind with alcohol. But I started having a glass of wine every night, and that would lead me, because it's, it loosens you up, and then it would have me eating hummus and crackers and, overdoing it pretty much every night.
But you never really drank to get drunk. Like, it was more of a couple of drinks.
I drank to be not stressed.
Yeah.
I mean, it definitely got to the point where I was using it to help numb my stress and kind of get through the day. Like, and you were working a lot at the time. I think you were working weekends
Well, I'm working
too.
a lot now at this time.
I know,
too.
but you were working, your shift was like, you worked Saturdays or Sundays or something. So it was really intense and really, I used food and alcohol to just kind of get through, and it started scaring me. And that's kind of where my journey started, was like, I was depressed. I was eating and drinking a lot, and I was not setting a great example for our daughter. I was angry all the time. I felt put upon, and I realized that I was using my life as an excuse to treat myself really poorly.
Yeah, and I've told this story before, but, my doctor looking me in the eye and saying, if you don't do something, you are going to lose a limb or go blind, like, which are common complications of diabetes. That, like, again, in air quotes, scared me straight. And I basically decided right there, he told me to give up all alcohol and sugar and bread and lots of other things, which I essentially did for a year. And, I was very hardcore about it, but it was really difficult, as I identified as somebody who enjoyed fine wine. Like, I identified as somebody who was really into champagne and sparkling wine and, again, craft beer and that sort of thing. And I really thought I was, like an adult when I did those things. And it felt really weird to suddenly be somebody who was just like, no, I'm not having it at all.
Well, and I think that there is a lot of, like Donald said, like, we actually, the weekend before he got the diabetes diagnosis, we actually went to Napa, and it was like our weekend getaway. Our daughter was
I think
visiting.
it was like literally the weekend before.
But it's like, it's a reward. We have busy lives where, parents now, we've got crazy jobs that we're trying to manage. And it was a reward. It was like, it was something that was just ours.
Right.
It's like, it was our time. It was our way of unwinding, but we paid a price for that. And then, when I, in January 2016, just sort of was at my lowest low, you can go back to the Catherineing episode, or what was it called?
Yeah.
Episode 1, episode 2, something like that. Like, I talk about how I sort of got to my lowest place and wanted to start losing weight. And I realized at that time, and I know everybody, we're going to talk about sort of how to manage alcohol in this. It's not all about us. But for me, I started tracking calories in January 2016. And it was at that point that I saw how many calories were in wine. And I saw the result of a glass of wine plus hummus plus crackers plus snacks. I saw that it wasn't just the alcohol calories. It was the calories that it gave me the motivation to consume afterward. And that was enough for me to just cut it out and decide that I wasn't going to have it casually during the week. And it made a really big difference in my journey. Donald received the diabetes diagnosis and was told he couldn't drink. And I remember at the time, and this kind of is in a whole world of anything you might have to give up while you're losing weight. Don saw it as forever. Like, he's like, I'm never going to feel joy again. I'm never going to have a sweet again.
I thought it was, the rest of my life that I had to do that. And I do have to be vigilant for the rest of my life. But it turned out I did not have to give up drinking forever, which is the good news. But there was a period of time where I didn't trust myself around certain things. And it wasn't just like, I may not have had an alcohol problem, but I definitely had a like soda problem, like a Coca-Cola problem. And, the happy ending to this is, not to digress too much, is like, I now am not that drawn to it anymore. Like, I can have a Coca-Cola and then move on. And part of that is that I don't anymore want to drink my calories, because I know I'm not as satisfied if I drink my calories versus if I eat my calories and actually like feel a little more full.
Yeah. And so if you're taking anything away from this, and we haven't even started talking about the things we're suggesting.
No,
yet,
we haven't even gotten there.
Is
yet.
that we feel like something is forever. Like, oh, I'm always going to be on a diet. I'm never going to be able to go out to dinner. I'm never going to be able to have a drink. I'm never. And it is a finite amount of time. If you have a casual issue with sweets, or if you're diabetic and you need to cut things out, it doesn't have to be forever. So don't think about forever. Just think about the modifications that you can make right now. Because it is different now. Like, our relationship with alcohol is different. I literally had half of a glass of champagne I shared with a friend on Friday night, which was why I was 36 hours sober. Because that was when I drank. But we had half of a glass. And before that, she and I would have each, we would have cracked open an entire bottle of champagne. Yeah, you would have split
a bottle for sure.
And we shared an individual, like a one serving container of it. And it was fine. It was good. So we'll talk about moderating.
Yeah, we have a whole episode about abstaining versus moderating, Battle of the Century, which I'll post a link to in the show notes. That's all about, for the better part of a year and a half, there were things I just avoided entirely. And, it's possible there are things that you'll never be able to bring back into your life, but I'm now able to enjoy a lot of the things that I had cut out for that time and work them into my plan and not binge eat them or binge drink them or whatever. And so even at my age, I'm just about to turn 50, and I only started doing this about 3.5 years ago, almost 4 years ago. I was able to teach myself a new trick and learn how to moderate these things. But part of that moderation was, going cold turkey for a good long time.
Yeah. So, why don't we, are you good with diving into kind of the meaty
let's do it.
Of the issue? So Donald, does the Food and Drug Administration manage the calorie counts on alcohol?
I'm so glad you asked me that question. No.
What?
They don't.
You put it in your mouth.
The reason that alcohol has no nutrition information on it is that it's actually regulated by the Treasury Department's Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms.
The Good Time Group.
The Good Time Group. As they're known.
As they're known. Wee-haw!
As they're known around Congress. So the FDA has very strict policies about regulating, food and drink and what you have to put on them. The labels, including calorie counts, and, they're always constantly revising them and ingredient labels. And if you'll notice, almost no alcohol has those nutrition labels on it.
It's not in their purview, my guy.
No.
In your purview.
Because Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms does not care about nutrition information.
Whoa.
I'm going on record saying they don't care.
But like mixers do. Like if you went and bought, some a mixer package or whatever from your Bevmos, that would have calories on it.
And not to get super technical, but there are some things like wine coolers that have to have the nutrition on it because there's like an alcohol percentage threshold at which the FDA gets to take over regulating it.
And if you're still awake, welcome back to
exactly.
Walt. But so
wake up.
So alcohol, and I'm sure if you're listening right now, you probably know about alcohol, but it takes on many forms. It's not just for one thing. It is social medicine. That is the name of a song from one of my favorite groups, Sebadoh. Social medicine. It is a social lubricant. It makes conversation easier. It takes away stress.
It would make this conversation easier.
It would. We're doing this dead sober, which is why it's not so fun. But it makes tough days seem easier, right? Like you crack open a beer. It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
Yeah.
It relaxes you. It tastes delicious. It is a reward for a hard day. And there is a culture, like a mommy juice culture right now. Like we went away a couple of weekends ago and I was out with some women and someone actually had a big tumbler of what I didn't know what it was. And it ended up being some cocktail mix beverage. She's like, a little mommy juice. Am I right? And I was like, no, this is the mommy juice I've heard about.
Thankfully, if you're a dude, like daddy juice just sounds wrong.
No, that does not sound right.
That's not good. No, there's not a culture of that.
But so alcohol is fun, but it can also be a way to numb your feelings. It is a lubricant for loneliness. It passes the time. It's also an acceptable peer pressure. Like if you go out and you're not drinking, other adults scold you and hammer you and why aren't you having fun and come on, just have a drink. And like, it is a socially acceptable peer pressure that I think a lot of people have to manage. Like I said, it's a conversation starter. You go out for dinner and drinks with colleagues, for work. It just sort of is an expected part of adult life for many. And it's also like a sophisticated, like Donald was saying, like we belong to some amazing wine clubs and we were invited to fancy dinners and like,
yeah,
and
it was really nice
identifying
myself as sort of a, Don Draper, like James Bond type who like had a very specific, like, Bollinger 1954, please. Like I knew what was good, and
like top shelf gin and like
and I could identify champagnes versus sparkling wines and that kind of thing. Like it feels like you're a real grown up when you can do those things.
For sure. And so we drink for many reasons, and those are all sort of the short-term circumstances or benefits of it. It's like, oh, it's fun, and you relax, and you're watching the football game. But the Medical News Today website, the Bummertown unfun,
Bummertown.com,
people who don't want you to have a good time. Wait, what did I call the Bureau of Tobacco and Firearms?
The Good Time Group, I think.
The Good Time Group, the opposite of the Good Time Group. They bring up...
See, we were talking about forgetting things that we've said on this episode. I already forgot what we said like earlier in this episode.
So they claim that alcohol use affects motor skills.
What?
That's
just what Big Sober wants you to think.
Yeah. It can help. It can enable slurred speech, which, it does happen.
Yeah.
It affects your memory. It can contribute to, here's the fun time, over 200 different diseases.
Yay!
Cirrhosis of the liver, pancreatitis, cardiomyopathy.
Catherine's going to read all 200
ulcers,
right now.
Vitamin deficiencies, anxiety disorders, depression, nerve damage, and more importantly and more immediate, hangovers and acid reflux.
Yeah, and also I read a couple of places that alcohol can numb your stomach, or does numb your stomach, and so it inhibits your ability to feel full. So one of the kind of side effects of drinking, even just a couple of drinks, is that you lose your ability to feel full, and you sort of lose your inhibition to snack.
I have had that problem since I was 4 years old. So
when you started drinking?
Yeah, when I started drinking Nesquik anyway.
Yeah.
But the more you drink, the increased tolerance you have, which means you're consuming more calories. So there are so many different short-term and long-term benefits and drawbacks to alcohol. So we're going to dive into, speaking of increased appetite, we're going to quote friend of the show, Yoni Freedhoff.
Such a good friend.
He wrote the book The Diet Fix. We're reading it right now in Wolt Place, WOLT. But he says, and we love rhyming things, alcohol dissolves resolve. That is easier to read than it is to say, but alcohol
dissolves resolve.
Dissolves resolve.
Say that 10 times fast.
So any sober intention that you have is gone when you have alcohol. It changes your mindset. Anytime you think like, oh, I'm going out to eat, Donald and Catherine have reminded me to check the menu before I go out to eat.
Yeah.
And then your chum, not chum of the show, friend of the show, but your
not super chum, your real life chum.
Your real life chum says, oh, why don't we get cocktails? It's Friday. Let's celebrate. And that delicious...
And their voice goes up 2 octaves just like that, yeah.
Then you have a gin and tonic, and then you go, you know what? You don't YOLO, everybody. Let's YOLO.
Let's get those avocado roll appetizers now.
Let's do it. And I did that for years. It's like you have that intention, but you take that sip, and then it makes you, what I like to call, this isn't Yoni Freedhoff, this is me, it makes you calorically promiscuous.
Oh.
Ooh. Suddenly your intention...
Suddenly the show's getting explicit again.
So your intention of, oh, you know what, I'm just going to get the salad, or I'm going to get the protein and the vegetable, suddenly that goes out the window. And that's the big immediate, we only look thin impact of alcohol. It's not necessarily the 100 calories of gin. It's what it leads you to and the calories that you eat because of it.
Yeah, but you do also have to be mindful of the calories themselves. There are some drinks like, a regular beer has something like 180 calories in it, light beer closer to like 120, but then there are drinks like a mudslide, which like one mudslide can have like 500 calories in it.
Yeah, I mean, when we went on vacation, Donald got something called a lava flow, which is basically...
Apparently this is a thing that everyone else knows about, but I only discovered it back in July, and it was pretty fantastic.
But it's also probably 800 calories.
Probably in each one that I just couldn't stop consuming.
It's a milkshake. It has coconut. That's an antioxidant, right?
Exactly.
So it's the... if we go through a Friday night happy hour, why don't we start there?
Yeah.
So you go out for happy hour, you promise yourself you're going to have one light beer. It's 100 calories. What's the big deal? You know what? Everybody else is getting an appletini. You know what? Those are 240 calories.
I know when I go out with the boys, we all get appletinis.
You bro up and get an appletini.
Come at me, bro, with your appletini.
So you get an appletini, and that is 240 calories. And then everybody else is, you know what? Let's get an avocado egg roll appetizer. Why not? So you get that, and it turns out that that's 1,000 calories.
Whoa.
But then you know what? We're going to get lettuce wraps. Lettuce, it's basically just like eating vegetables. It's paleo friendly, whatever. Turns out the lettuce wraps are 1,000 calories.
Yeah.
And then suddenly, you know what? People are getting a second round of Cosmos. You got to get another Cosmo. And then
wait, we switched from appletinis to Cosmos?
We're getting Cosmos now.
I can't keep up.
We just watched Sex and the City. And if it's good enough for Carrie Bradshaw,
too crazy for me.
This was basically my life for 10 years. Because a Cheesecake Factory opened up next to our office, and this literally happened all the time. So all of those intentions of, being mindful or just sticking to one thing goes out the window. Even now, like this isn't like blowing up in the Cheesecake Factory conspiracy, but they actually have like skinny cocktails now, which have lower calorie mixers.
Yeah.
The alcohol still makes you want to have the 1,000-calorie egg roll dish.
Yeah.
Like it still happens. So we start with the intention, and Yanni Friedhoff, and I know even Catherine and Donald Weigel have talked about 365 surprises as well. And there are as many as 7 days a week. Did you know that, Donald?
What?
There are.
Not on my calendar.
But we talk about, if you're great all week, if you're Monday through Friday, you're eating at your deficit, you're hitting all your targets, and then it's the weekend. You gotta, everybody's working for the weekend. You gotta unwind. If your weekend starts on a Friday, let's say, and you go and get the cocktails, and then you do that again all weekend, do you know that if you start stopping your health goals on a Friday, that is 43% of your week that you are sabotaging.
3 out of 7 days.
3 out of 7 days. If you're just doing Saturday and Sunday or Friday and Saturday, that is still 29% of your week that you're sabotaging. And any work that you're doing Monday through Friday can be completely undone by a couple of days of cocktails and snacks.
And look, I think that one of the points of this show is that you don't have to be perfect 100% of the time, but I think only being on your plan like 4 out of every 7 days is probably not going to cut it.
Well, and another show that I listened to, the Shalene Show, she talked about the difference between intuitive eating, which I intuitively eat everything, and informed eating. And what we're trying to do with just laying this all out is, if you're informed by how alcohol affects you, how calories add up, and how inhibitions go away when you're drinking, at least you go into it knowing, okay, this is the pattern. If I start with a Cosmo at 5 o'clock, I'm going to end up with a 2,200 calorie chicken and biscuit meal from Cheesecake Factory if I start down this path. And being informed.
I think I talked about it on this show not too long ago. Even after, all of the progress I've made, within the last couple of months, I had a beer pretty early in the day, like thinking I would just work it into my calories. And then I just basically threw up my hands and ate whatever I wanted the rest of the day. And it was just, it was just kind of like that one beer just set me off to the races. And so I learned a very valuable lesson from that, even now, not to do that early in the day.
Yeah. And and knowing your patterns and knowing your triggers are really important. And from the Gretchen Rubin construct of the 4 tendencies, people are affected in different ways by outer accountability. In talking through this episode and throwing out calories and impacts and whatever, in Gretchen Rubin's 4 tendencies, there are upholders who, if they make a decision to do something, like you find out all this information about calories and how alcohol impacts you.
Yeah.
Our friend of the show and Walt watcher, Walt participator, Nicole is an upholder. She makes a decision, she follows through with it. She's lost 80 pounds. She runs half marathons, and she goes to Buffalo Wild Wings and has beer all the time. She has worked it into her plan. She's able to eat at a deficit. She uses the Weight Watcher points and she makes it work. There are people who are meticulous and who can make a decision and follow through with it and not be impacted by temptation of indulgence. I'm not that person. Donald identifies as a questioner. If he gets all the facts, he can make a conscious decision about it. His physician told him that he would lose a leg or go blind if he kept drinking and eating the way he did. He said, "Don't mind if I don't." And he just decided he had enough information as a questioner to make that decision. I identify as an obliger, which means that I need external accountability to get things done. And for those of you out there who identify as an obliger, if you're in a social situation where other people are egging you on to drink, come on, it'll be fun, just have one, making that sound. You're much more likely to give in to external pressure, peer pressure, to drink or eat outside of your zone. So being aware of that, being informed about the kind of person you are and the dangers that befall you, I think is really important. Her final one is the rebel tendency, which is sort of, you can't tell me what to do and neither can I.
I'm not going to listen to your final one.
Yeah. But we belonged to 3 different wine clubs and it was really hard. We identified as...
I'm still sad about canceling one of them in particular.
Yeah. Let's say it at the same time. No. But we identified as wine drinkers. It was sophisticated. It was who we identified as. And having to cancel those was so tough because it was part of our identity. And if you're a rebel and you identify as someone who loves to unwind, who you're not going to be, controlled by other people's opinions. If you don't have your wine, who cares? Or, you can't boss me around. There is a price to pay for identifying as someone who has a drink every day after work to unwind. And I paid that price with pounds on the scale.
Yeah, for sure.
So we have a bunch of different tips and tricks and TOWs and POWs to kind of help you navigate your alcohol choices throughout the week, don't we, Donald?
We sure do. And one of them, which I'm not sure that my lovely bride will agree with, is if you know that having that first drink is going to cause you to lose your inhibitions in terms of eating, before you take it, eat something. Eat something that's in your plan and try and not show up to whatever it is, whether it's just your living room or whether it's actually a social evening. Don't show up hungry. That is a big one for me. Yeah, or thirsty.
And people, including Catherine Weigel of WOLT.
I've heard of her. She's amazing and so good looking.
I enjoyed, the light buzz that I would get from having alcohol, and I wouldn't want to eat before I drank because I wouldn't get that buzz. As Dr. Yoni Friedhoff says, if you're going to drink, and this is tying into what Donald said, drink while you're eating because it actually slows down the absorption of alcohol. So either eat before you drink or do it in tandem because it slows down the absorption.
Yes, exactly.
Another one is going back to how many days there are that society tells us are in a week. If you're drinking, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, because it's your weekends and your unwind time, cut that back a day. If you're drinking 3 nights a week, cut it back to 2. If you're drinking 2, cut it back to 1. If you're drinking during the week, decide that Saturday is your day to have a nice cocktail. Don't, I literally was drinking 7 days a week at one point, and I paid the price on the scale. Make choices. Gretchen Rubin talks about having absolutes makes it easier for you. If you're like, should I have a drink tonight? Should I not have a drink tonight? Just decide, I only drink on Saturday night. I only drink on Friday nights after work. It matters to make decisions in advance because then you don't have that decision fatigue.
And we say this with everything involving weight loss, but be really honest with yourself and do not tell yourself that you can have just one drink when you can't. You have to be able to fit, if you're going to make the choice to keep alcohol in your diet plan as part of your life, you have to be able to be honest with yourself and know that you can just stop at 1 or 2 or whatever fits in your plan. Because I am guessing that if you're somebody who, if you drink 1, you've got to finish the bottle, that you're not going to be able to stay on your weight loss plan. And you have to be really honest with yourself about that. If you repeatedly tell yourself you can just have 1 and then you don't, or you say to yourself, I can just have 1 and then not eat all the food, but you do anyway, then you've got to really reevaluate and decide whether alcohol really can be a part of your life and also stick to your diet plan. And I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, but there are people out there right now who aren't going to be able to make alcohol a part of their life if they truly want to achieve their fitness goals.
Well, and we actually did a Facebook Live in Wolt Place yesterday talking about alcohol. And there may be people out there, and I think it is not just me who has experienced this. Like, we have a neighbor who is 20 years sober, and I have thought to myself, not kidding, well, at least I'm not an alcoholic. Like, I eat, but you have to eat food.
Yeah.
Drinking is an option, but I have to eat food. Like, so my burden is heavier because I have to eat, but he doesn't have to drink. Like, and that is some messed up loopholing right there.
For
like,
sure.
That is not okay. And there is no arbiter of the perfect problem to have, but making conscious choices about how to use alcohol or how to abstain from it is really important.
Yeah, a compulsion is a compulsion, whether it's, you have to be around it or you don't.
Yeah. So going back to the deciding, if you're going to be drinking alcohol, you should try to have it with food, which is the first option. Reduce the frequency is another option. And then also changing your choices is an option, whether you do it socially or at home. Use smaller glasses. If you have, we have these giant crystal goblet things that probably could hold 16 ounces at once.
Yeah.
That's a lot. Just like we use small salad plates to eat our meals, drinking out of small glasses gives the appearance that you're getting more for your buck. So if you're drinking out of a small juice glass or a little cute little sort of Demitasse cup, it goes visually a lot longer or a lot farther than having it out of a giant 16 ounce, super slushy gulp container.
Out of your big gulp cup.
The classy.
Yeah, you can't have a giant glass and call it one serving. Like, you really have to, just like with food, you really have to weigh and measure everything. Like, a serving of wine is 6 ounces. Like, it's not a full glass.
Yeah, top off. Like, if it doesn't go up to the lip. But also, you can also dilute your alcohol with something like a club soda. So there's something called a wine spritzer, which is a small amount of wine, and then a club soda, which is calorie free. Then a little squeeze of orange or lemon or something like that. So you can make your beverage.
Delightful.
You can pump up the volume. So you can do that. You can also, if you're out in a social situation, you can switch between having a water and then an alcoholic beverage. So you're not just going glass for glass with your friends. You can switch it out. Yoni Friedhoff suggested that, or no, I can't remember. I did so much research. I don't know where I got it from. But they said that diet ginger ale without ice looks like a delicious, refreshing beer.
Yeah.
If you want a mocktail, go with that.
Or even just club soda with ice looks like a cocktail as well.
Yeah, if you're afraid of being judged. You can also have so instead of a gin and tonic, you would have just tonic by itself or a club soda, like Donald said. You can also, and this was definitely Yoni Friedhoff, say you are the kind of person who, do you remember $2 Chuck, Donald?
Oh yeah,
$2 Chuck.
I think it's still a thing. Only it now costs like $2.99.
Yeah.
So like
Trader Joe's had a really low quality, inexpensive $2 bottle of wine. It was almost like a fun, like, hi, you got $2 Chuck, let's get a case of it. Like, let's drink it up, everybody. Instead of going with a $2 Chuck, buy a very high quality bottle of wine. So instead of buying...
Yeah, don't have your $2 Chuck, multiple times in a month. Like, save up and get one really nice bottle and have that maybe once a month.
Yeah, so, I mean, and you've all seen it at the grocery store. Maybe you have it in your own refrigerator. Like your box of Franzia wine. And, that's just has a little spigot that you can just drink out of all the time. Instead of having it just as your default beverage.
Yeah, I will grant you it is convenient.
It is convenient and seaworthy. I had it on a boat once. It was very helpful not to have a glass bottle. But going with a really nice, high quality bottle of wine and savoring it. So if you're with a partner or with a friend, sharing a really nice bottle of wine once a month and having a high quality experience and really savoring it soberly, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Can go a lot farther than just popping open the box of Franzia wine. So that is an alternative. Go for quality instead of quantity.
And also, just like with food, you really have to know your calories. Remembering that drinks with a lot of mixers like margaritas and Mai Tais and the mixers can be super high calorie where, and not everybody likes everything. And so this won't work for everybody, but switching out for a, gin and soda or something like that can be much lower calorie, or even a light beer instead of a regular beer. And I know that may take the fun out of it for some people, but at least understanding that if you're having that Mai Tai, that's probably 400 calories, or that margarita is probably 400 or 500 calories.
Right. And then the free chips and salsa that go along with it.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So go for white wine, red wine, a high quality top shelf liquor with a soda included in it.
And again, watching your pores, an ounce and a half versus, of vodka versus, 3-4 ounces, suddenly that starts adding up as well.
Donald's nickname at one point was Donnie Two Pours, by the way. We went wine tasting, and for some reason, the person kept giving Donald 2 pours of everything.
I was sitting at the end of the table.
I'm living my best life.
He kept pouring to me first and last. It was pretty great.
Yep, little Donnie Two Pours. So make some choices also on the home front, because I still enjoy a glass of champagne every once in a while, or a glass of Chardonnay. But there's the loophole of finishing what you've opened. I opened the bottle of Chardonnay, I got to finish it. It'd be a waste, whatever. I'm not saying it is the best quality in the world, but most grocery stores carry single-serving champagnes, single-serving sparkling wine, and also the little individual airplane pours of certain alcohols. If you worry about having to consume an entire container of something, buy an individual. Like I said, Friday night shared a little glass of champagne with a friend of mine.
Yeah.
There was no wasting. There's no leftovers. There's no, it's Sunday, let's have mimosas.
And I know this is the alcohol show, but I do this with chips and with soda as well. You can buy Coca-Cola in these little 100-calorie bottles and buy your chips. They sell most chips in bags that are 300 calories, but then they also sell them in smaller bags that are 140, 150. And, they do the same thing with a lot of alcohols. You can get the smaller serving sizes.
Well, and two, so I think those are great ideas. And I have really enjoyed the smaller containers of things because it has definitely helped me moderate. Going back, if we switch it over to math for a minute, do you mind if I put on my
go
to math class?
We love our math on this show.
Yeah. So this is sort of, we love math, and there are apparently 365 days in most years. Just for funsies, because alcohol is not required for daily life. It is enjoyable, but it is not like...
Says you.
Says me. But let's say a glass of wine has 192 calories. Shall we say that? Do we agree upon that?
Sure, why not?
Measurement? Do you agree that there are at least 365 days a year?
I do.
Okay. So if you do a little bit of quick math, that results in just over 70,000 calories of wine a year.
Yeah, one glass a day.
If you just have one glass a day, which I was definitely having at least one glass a day. Again, with some math, that equals about 20 pounds of potential weight up or down the scale. If I cut out 192 calories a day or add 192 calories a day, that could be 20 pounds a year. If you tie that in with having one extra appetizer a week, so you get your cocktail and then you decide you're going to have the avocado egg rolls, which are 958 calories, which I totally used to do. If you have one extra, almost 1,000 calories a week, that's 50,000 calories a year of unplanned appetizer snacks. And that's just if you do it once a week. So you grab that extra handful of, cheese and crackers, or you get that extra appetizer. And that equals about 14 pounds of potential weight a year that you're not accounting for, that you hadn't expected. So that's like 34 pounds of potential weight just from one cocktail a night.
Yeah, a year. And you've got a lot of years of that.
Yeah. And I did that, and I got up to 250 pounds and wondered why that happened. And it was because I was using alcohol, one, to numb my feelings, not deal with my boundaries. I felt like a victim all the time. It also tasted delicious, but it turned into a really ugly proposition for me. And if you have issues with alcohol and you have issues with not speaking your truth to people, I used it because I was afraid to tell people what I needed and what I wanted. And I have learned, I think we had a boundary. Oh, we had an episode, Dog the Boundary Hunter, where we talk about actually addressing people and speaking your needs and not using alcohol as revenge or as a reward for how much you're put upon in life. But please know also, with cutting down on alcohol, it's not like calories happen in a vacuum. If I just cut out my glass of wine every night, I'll lose 20 pounds a year, because there is something called displacement. We've all seen Indiana Jones. We know he tried to take the golden bust, and then he replaced it with a bag of dirt.
He sure did.
And that bag of dirt, sometimes so let's say alcohol is the golden bust. Are you on board?
Yes.
Okay, so he's like grabbing his gin and tonic.
Yeah.
That bag of dirt.
Replace it with a bag of dirt. You're trying to replace your gin and tonic with a bag of dirt.
But it could be a bag of Dirt-ritos.
Yeah.
Or sweets. So when I cut down on alcohol consumption, I definitely replaced that with dessert. So it's not like suddenly cutting out one thing means that you're not going to turn to some other vice, because my sugar consumption is higher now than it was before. So you have to pay attention to, if you stop alcohol, what are you trying to replace it with? If you stop having sugar, do you replace it with alcohol? Like, there's always this sort of balance of figuring out, I stopped alcohol. Why am I not losing weight? And it's like,
exactly.
oh, well, because you're replacing it with soda, or you're replacing it with a venti cafe latte or whatever. So be mindful that you're not, if you're deleting alcohol from your diet, that you're not replacing it with some other vice, because that definitely happens.
Yeah. And again, I think we're coming to an end on this. You'll have to figure out what's right for you in terms of whether you can keep alcohol in your diet plan or not. And, I think some people out there are going to be able to do it, but sadly others, you're going to really have to decide for yourself whether or not you can. And the answer might be no, that you can't. And nobody wants to hear that answer, but at least for a while. And again, for me, it turned out not to be forever. And now I don't, it's a part of my life, but not really a regular part of my life. And I'm fine with that. The benefits of being at my goal weight have far outweighed what I've lost, in air quotes, from all of those wine clubs and the frequent drinking and the, feeling sophisticated. Like none of those things have felt better than being at my goal weight.
Yeah, and there's a balance to be struck, and we're not all the same. We don't all react the same way. A couple of people in our group said that they don't really drink at all, which must be nice for them.
Yeah.
But they have other issues. So alcohol is part of being a grown-up in many cases, in many places. Alcohol is, but it is a social lubricant. It is, something for celebration. It can be a great part of your life. But when it starts controlling you instead of you controlling it, when you start making exceptions and, throwing caution to the wind and just deciding to get that second cocktail, which leads to the 2,200 calorie chicken and biscuit meal at Cheesecake Factory, which it often did for me. When it starts controlling your choices and you feel like a victim, it is no longer a healthy part of your life. When you start seeing it as something you can't replace and you're not willing to, not be 250 pounds because, you'll die before giving up your lava flows. So just know yourself better, be an informed drinker instead of an intuitive drinker, because I used to drink all the time and it was super fun.
And be really honest with yourself about how you're going to react when you have alcohol in your life.
Yeah. So that is our alcohol conversation. It is a moderate part of our lives now. I didn't think at one point that it could be, but it is. If you need additional help or support, please go and get it. There is no shame in needing extra support for your consumption. So that's our talk on alcohol.
That is our talk on alcohol. And I think now it is time to move on to the product of the week. Pow, everybody.
So this, again, comes from a Wolt chum.
Wolt Super Chum Darcy suggested the Progress app.
Yeah, so I will read her post. Is that cool?
Go ahead.
Okay. Darcy says, "You're good looking." No.
She did not say that.
She said, "I want to share something, a potential POW. I found this app that helps you take better progress pics. It's called Progress."
Oh,
get it? Very creative, I know.
Creative.
It stores front, back, and side photos and shows you sort of in an overlay where you can position yourself in the same spot every time. I did pay, I think it's on the iTunes, I think it is the App Store, it's $5.99 for the deluxe model. But certain features are free. I think you can do 3 or 4 different measurements for free, but then if you want to upgrade, it's $5.99. I think it's worth it. So it has a place to track your measurements and then your photos. I always hate those before and after photos or the progress photos where one of them is taken in an open field and the other is taken in a dark alleyway. And you're like, look at my progress.
Those people that stole your before and after photo and used it for their product. I am convinced that many of the Instagram photos I'm looking at are of before and afters are not the same person.
Well, and I actually know someone in one of my groups that she was the before picture to someone else's after, and she found it and felt terrible because they were using her as it's evil. So you don't want to be.
That's sort of beside the point. The point here is that, and it turns out that Progress is only available on Apple on iPhone, but I found an app called Progon, Progon on.
Sounds like a supervillain. Progon, destroyer of worlds.
Android, which does a very similar thing, and I actually paid for it. There was a free version, and I went ahead and paid to support the developer. It was only $1.99, but it allows you to pull up a picture of yourself and then use it as an overlay so that you can stand in exactly the same spot when you're taking your next photo. And then it will automatically kind of move them side by side or above and below one another and create a little triptych for you so that your before and after photos look exactly the same.
And I think that really helps because, again, the alleyway shot and the open field shot just doesn't really make sense. I really don't like it when someone shows a progress photo and I'm like, yeah, I can totally see the difference. So having an app that helps you stand in the same place.
And these pictures can be just for you, and if you don't want to share with the world, you definitely don't have to. But, as we've suggested before on this show, like no matter where you are taking progress photos, I wish I had more photos of me. I just didn't want to be photographed back when I was at my heaviest. I wish I had more photos of me back then so that I could really have some nice side-by-sides.
I wish I did too.
And this app makes it easier.
It does. So that is from Wolt Place Chum, friend of the show.
Super chum,
Darcy. So thank you so much for sharing that.
And I will link to both apps in the show notes. And that is your product of the week.
Pow,
everybody. If you have enjoyed this show and gotten something out of it, we would really appreciate if you would take 2 minutes and go to Apple Podcasts and rate and review us. We've gotten some really nice comments, and a 5-star rating really helps
support the developers, as they say.
It boosts us in the search when people are looking for weight loss and fitness podcasts, and that would really help us out. And we would also really love to hear from you. If you have any stories about how alcohol has impacted your weight loss, ways that you've been able to figure out how to work it into your life, we would love to hear about them from you. And, perhaps we will mention you as a Wolt Super Chum in a future episode. So you can reach out to us at weonlylookthin@gmail.com.
You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at weonlylookthin.
On the socials.
As
the
they
kids say. We also have a website, weonlylookthin.com, where you can listen to episodes, and you can also contact us through the site if you prefer.
And you can join Wolt Place, WOLT Place. You can go to our website, weonlylookthin.com, and look for join our support group.
And by we, I mean Catherine, run an online support group for women just like you who are looking to find some camaraderie, looking to find tips and help and support. It's private, so that your family and friends won't know what you're talking about there and won't know what you're posting. And, I think we've put together a really great group of women who are, sharing and supporting one another and really helping to achieve weight loss goals.
Yeah, and Donald isn't really there because ladies talk about lady stuff.
Yeah, it's for women only, and I kind of I'm there if anybody has a technical question, but I don't really look at posts unless I'm actually tagged.
On the last one, I said something that's like, it's for the ladies. Yeah. Someone in the group posted a ladies man picture.
Yeah, it's a group for the ladies.
Not appropriate. So thank you so much for listening. If you have any other tips and tricks and ideas about how to moderate your alcohol consumption, we'd love to hear about it, so let us know.
Yeah, or any other, tip of the week suggestions or product of the week suggestions. We love hearing from you.
Yeah. So the next time you're at a Catalina wine mixer and you can't tell the difference between a gin and tonic and someone drinking a Pepsi Clear, just remember that Donald and I are an inspiration.
The information that you hear on this podcast is for informational purposes only. The hosts are not medical professionals. You should always consult with your doctor, nurse, or other certified health professional before beginning any diet or fitness program.